let's start out with just who is Right Law Group, and in general, what kind of cases do we deal with?
So Right Law Group is a criminal defense firm. We specialize in Colorado Springs and the surrounding areas. We take anything from traffic cases to misdemeanors, DUIs, some felonies. Pretty much anybody who wants to get their life back on the right path, that's who we help.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah. So today we're gonna kind of focus on more of the DUI cases, just because we have a lot of questions and a lot of clients come in, and it's just like, how does this work? So some of the questions we have are kind of like, what are the steps in a DUI case? Like what kind of happens during the arrest? I think maybe we'll focus on that first.
Okay. So DUI cases can actually be pretty complicated. Obviously, the best thing to do is if you get pulled over, actually pull over. Don't run away. But when you get pulled over, some common tips are, keep your hands on the wheel, make sure that you're being very respectful of the officer, and don't try to make any sudden movements or anything like that. Then what's going to happen is the officer is going to ask you questions. You're being investigated for a DUI if they say, how much have you had to drink tonight? Now, you have the right not to incriminate yourself. You have the right not to say anything that is going to in any way hurt you. But a lot of the times they're asking because they think that you have had something to drink. So you have to make that decision as to whether or not you want to admit that you've been drinking or not. You do have to remember, though, anything you say to the police can and will be used against you. So they'll also ask to put you through some things that are called SFSTs. It's standard field sobriety tests. A lot of you probably have seen these. It's things like doing a walk and turn test, standing on one leg. Some people still do the touch your nose, even though that's not standardized. But going through these tests, you can do them if you want, but you do have the right to refuse to do them. They're also going to ask you if you want to take a breath or a blood test. Now, this is something that a lot of people get confused on. In the state of Colorado, you absolutely have the right to refuse testing. Some police will tell you that you can't refuse, but you can. You can say, no, I don't want to do any kind of test. There are different questions as to whether you should do a test or not. If you do refuse a test, then you are going to have your license immediately taken away. Now, the good news is if you call our office right after that, or any criminal defense firm in the Colorado Springs area, we can then petition the DMV to get you a restricted license. So refusing, even though you lose your license, the cops will tell you you're going to lose your license for a year. The most you'll probably lose it is about 60 days. But with that, if you choose to refuse, they can't look at anything that's in your system. Now, if you choose a breath or a blood test, you won't lose your license right away if it comes back under the legal limit. So let's walk through like breath test versus blood test.
Definitely.
A lot of people get confused about they call it the breath test or the intoxilizer. People think that you've seen on videos and things where the cops come up to you and they have like your little breathing thing and say blow into this. That is not an intoxilizer. That is called a PBT, or a preliminary breath test. That is not admissible in court. So if the cops shove something in your face and says, here, blow on this, nothing that comes in from that is going to be an accurate reading, and it's not something that they can use against you in court. They're just trying to gauge whether or not you have been drinking. If they get a positive hit on there and you see, it shows that I'm above the legal limit, you can then refuse, and the courts are never going to be able to use that against you. The actual intoxilizer test is down at the police station. So the cops will have to take you from your car to the police station, where they do a very long process for the intoxilizer. What they do is they have like a 20-minute deprivation period, meaning you have to sit there for 20 minutes, not putting anything in your mouth, not drinking or eating anything, so that they get a clear read. And then what they're going to do is have you breathe into it. They're going to take a break, and then they're going to have you breathe into it again. That is an actual result, and that will get you your BAC, or your blood alcohol content result, immediately. If it comes back above a 0.08 for that intoxilizer test, they're going to take your license away. But again, if people call us, we can go to the DMV, ask them to reinstate their license, and they can get their license back within 30 to 60 days, so long as we are able to get that DMV hearing in time. Now, what's really, really important to understand is if you refuse a breath test or a blood test, or you take a breath test, you only have 7 days. From the time you get pulled over to the time that your license is going to be completely revoked, you only have 7 days to request that DMV hearing. If you miss the deadline for the request, you don't have a license for a year. So that really stinks. That's why we're always telling our clients, call us as soon as you get pulled over. For a blood test, that's a little bit different. Now, a breath test is only going to show if you have alcohol in your system. So if you've been smoking anything and drinking, and you can choose a breath test all day long, because a breath test doesn't show marijuana in your system or anything else. The cops can say, well, we think you've been smoking, so we're not going to allow you to take a breath test because they know it won't show up either. But if you think there are going to be multiple things in your system, always take a breath test if you're given the option.
Good to know.
If you take a blood test, it's going to show everything that's in your system, including non-drugs. So, I mean, things like creatine show up. So if you're drinking those creatine drinks, those show up. But if you do a blood test, the benefit of doing a blood test is, number one, if you're not drunk, take a blood test all day long. Show them you have nothing in your system. Number two, if you know that you're not going to be over the legal limit, like if you had one beer and you know it's not like one of those craft beers that's going to shoot you over the moon, take a blood test, it'll come back. The other benefit of taking a blood test is you get to keep your license while you're waiting for blood results. So while you're waiting for blood results, the DMV is going to be processing the blood results. It can take anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. So you're free to drive that whole time. You'll get a restricted license. It's like a paper license saying, hey, I'm waiting for my blood results. And you can drive until you get that DMV request in. Once the DMV letter hits saying, hey, you're over, then again, you have 7 days to contact a lawyer to get on that DMV hearing track.
So it's a sweet spot to call us.
Yes.
Right there.
Basically, as soon as you see that you're over the legal limit, call a lawyer immediately. Because that is one thing that is incredibly crucial as far as timing for DUIs go. The actual criminal side of things takes a lot longer to get into the court system.
Awesome. Cool. Oh, learn something new every day. So once we are called and we are hired, what happens after that with a DUI case?
So every law firm operates a little differently. I can tell you what Right Law Group does.
Yeah, definitely.
What we do at Right Law Group is we are really big on being very, very communicative with our clients. We make sure that our clients can text us, call us, email us, Facebook us, whatever they need to do. We actually have had a couple of clients call us from the back of the cop car and then they leave their phone on. That works. That's perfect. We'll start recording. So once you call our firm, what we do is we start getting to work on your case, requesting every single thing the state could possibly have against you to make sure we're building the absolute best defense possible. So we're getting like police reports. The body-worn camera evidence is huge in a DUI case because so many times the police will sit there and say, I did this and this and this, because they're used to saying that. But then you look at the body cam, you're like, we didn't actually do that. So the really cool thing about Right Law Group is we use online filing systems. So we can send our clients all of their discovery, and discovery just means police reports, body-worn camera evidence, if there's dash cam evidence. We send it all to our clients so they have a copy. A lot of firms don't do that, and you have to come into the law firm to watch your body cam. We want you to be able to see it. You have a right to know what the state is bringing against you. We're going to give it all to you. So once we do that, we request the discovery, and then we go through to the court process.
That's the fun part.
Yeah.
So once you're in court, how many hearings? How long does this typically take? What can they expect once this gets going?
The real answer is it varies.
Yep.
So usually what happens is if you get a DUI, especially if you have a blood test, the first time that you're going into court, number one, if you don't have an attorney, they're going to put you in a place, at least in Colorado Springs, called the First Appearance Center, or the FAC. If you go to the First Appearance Center, you are not going to see a judge. You may not even see a real district attorney. They often have interns working there, which isn't a bad thing. People got to learn somehow. But you're not going to really get anywhere. If you hire our law firm or another law firm, what we do is we get in there and we say, we don't want you to waste our client's time. Take us out of that First Appearance Center so that we can actually get in front of a judge and get this case moving. So depending on when you hire a law firm, that can cause a little bit of a delay. The other things that you need to know are we have pretrial conferences. And if we don't have the blood results yet, because the Colorado Bureau of Investigations is the one that processes them, sometimes they get really behind, especially around New Year's Eve or St. Patrick's Day.
When it's busy.
Yeah. So if they don't have blood results, we can't really do anything on the case yet because we want to make sure we know what that BAC is. So usually you're looking at about 1 to 3 pretrial conferences on a DUI. Then it gets to a point called an arraignment. At that time, you've got to say, okay, this is what we're doing on the case. We just got a question in on Instagram. Do we do divorce law? No, we do not do divorce law at Right Law Group, but we have a lot of people that we really respect and refer to. A couple of law firms around town really work well with our clients, and we make sure that we're connecting you guys. So if you ever want a referral, technically lawyers aren't allowed to give referrals, so I can give you a couple of different names of people who could help you out. There are a lot of good divorce lawyers here in town, but there are a couple that we like to work with our clients really closely with.
Yeah, awesome. You can get those sent over as well.
Yeah. But yeah, with the court process, I mean, once you get to the arraignment, you're either going to take a plea of some kind, or you're going to set it for a trial. And that's really where it's kind of it branches off in the criminal case.
Okay. So with that, with either way, once, you know, the end comes when you're getting your probation, what you need to do, what kind of, how long your license is gone, is there any kind of general what happens, or is it case by case? You just kind of who your judge might be, or you know, that kind of thing?
The short answer is yes, it's all case by case, but there are some really good tips that we can give you guys. A couple of things: if you get a DUI, if it's a refusal, a breath test, a blood test, anything, there are a lot of steps that you can take up front to make sure that you're putting the best foot forward for the judge and for the DAs. If you're going to take a plea, or if you go to trial and you're sentenced and found guilty, you can start doing things proactively now when you have your license. So many of our clients that have blood tests and they're in that waiting period we've talked about, they have their license right now, and I tell them, go get all this stuff done as much as you can. So you can start enrolling in level 2 alcohol classes. It's a statutory thing. Everyone in Colorado has to take them if you have a DUI and you're convicted of one, so you might as well get started early. We actually have a couple of really good recommendations for people who, a good friend of ours is actually doing alcohol treatment via Zoom still, so there are easy ways to get in and get going on this. Other things you can do, start doing community service. In Colorado Springs, you have to sign up through Front Range Community Service Center to get that done, but you can start doing that. And the other thing you can do is you can take the Mothers Against Drunk Driving panel. It's an online course. It's 2 hours. It's going to be required for first-time DUI offenders, so you might as well get it done early. And everything you do early, from the time you get your DUI to the time you're sentenced, counts. So a lot of the time, getting that stuff done in advance will really help you at the end point, because a lot of my clients that I've worked with over the years don't want to be on supervised probation because they don't want a probation officer breathing down their neck, which makes sense, and probation costs money. So if they're doing all of these things in advance, it can keep it so that they don't have to have a supervisor on probation. They can do what's called unsupervised probation, and be able to just turn in everything either to the law firm or to the courts directly.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I was going to say, like, we really like to get proactive, get ahead of it,
for sure.
Come up to court, ready to go. We already have stuff handled. So with a DUI case, we do get a lot of questions about devices in cars, and how does like that play in? Is this like everyone who gets a DUI needs it? Is this after a couple DUIs? How does that work?
There are a couple different things at play. So number one, the DMV side and the criminal courts are completely separate, but they do kind of talk to each other on some things. So when you get a DUI, you are actually going to be dealing with the DMV first usually, and then the courts. So the DMV is a completely separate thing. And unfortunately, the DMV gets 2 bites at the apple, so to speak. So they can revoke you if you're over the 0.08 for alcohol, or they can revoke you if you get a conviction. So if you refuse a test and you are going through the criminal court system, the DMV will still be notified of that, and you may have to get an interlock device installed in your car. If you blow hot on a breath test, or you do a blood test and it comes back and they revoke you, you'll have to get an interlock. Now, the way that we get people's licenses back early is by having that interlock device installed. And the rules around when you have an interlock depend, number one, on how many DUIs you've had, and number two, what your BAC or your blood alcohol content is. So if you have like below a 0.15, so the legal limit for driving, if you're over 0.08, that is driving under the influence. If you're below a 0.15, so almost 2 times that limit, a lot of first-time offenders will only have to keep an interlock device installed in their car for 9 months. And a really cool thing that a lot of interlock providers do, we work primarily with Intoxilock just because they give our clients discounts, which is super cool. But a lot of things that Intoxilizer providers will do is they'll say, well, if you go a certain number of months without having any hot hits or any issues, we'll let you off early. So they can send a petition in. The shortest I've seen someone have an Intoxilock in their car was 3 to 4 months, because they were doing totally fine. Every time they got in, they didn't have any issues. But personally, intoxilizers in your car kind of scare me because you have to blow into them while you're driving.
Yeah.
And anytime it dings, you have to blow, and you have to blow long and hard enough, which this sounds kind of dirty now.
We're live.
We are live talking about blowing into things in the car. But you have to make sure that you've got the breath behind it to support it. You have to make sure that you don't have anything that could register as alcohol going on either. I've actually had clients who, a lot of you may know about the keto diet, where you're trying to eat only like a high-fat diet.
Yeah.
You actually produce a lot of acetone in your breath when you're on that diet, and that can register as a hot hit. Yeah, it's crazy. Weird. So there are a lot of different components. Even though there are some basic tips that we can give you guys for DUIs, there are a lot of different nuances with that. But for the most part, someone with an intoxilizer in their car is going to be going for, it's called an interlock, but with an interlock device, they'll be looking at anywhere between 4 months to 24 months, depending on the severity.
Okay. And then sometimes they can lessen if you're doing your thing.
I mean,
good
honestly,
choices.
as with anything, if you make the right choices, you're going to have a much easier time.
Exactly. And then is that something that you get approved like through that interlock company? Is it the DMV? Is it the court? How do you get off?
That's a great question.
How do you get out of that?
How do you stop blowing the device? So with the interlock device in your car, you have to get a private company to install it. Honestly, I tell people that have really nice cars, you want to get a bang up car because it can really mess with your systems. Sometimes the installation, you want to go to a certified installer, because if you get some janky like back alley person installing it, they can mess up with all of your systems in your car, and then you might get pulled over again because it might turn your headlights off. So you want to make sure you have a certified interlock provider, put it in your car. The ignition won't start unless you blow into the device, and then they are reading it. So these things are pretty sophisticated. It has like a little tube that you blow into that measures your BAC, and then they've got a camera mounted on the dash. So they are looking at you when you're blowing into it. This is a big deal because if you get in your car and you're drunk and you ask your passenger to blow into it for you,
they will see that.
They're gonna see it. They take pictures.
Good luck.
Yeah, so you'll be on candid camera.
There we go.
But to get it out of your car, you have to talk to your interlock provider and say, hey, am I able to get off early? They'll send a note to the DMV and they'll say, we have not had any issues with this person. We're good with them getting off early, and then the DMV will process that. Okay. So it's kind of a joint effort.
Yeah, that's good to know. Another question that, just more give you guys information of what also comes along with DUI charges. Do you just get pulled over, you get a DUI? Is it normally people are also speeding? Are there typical general combined charges with that?
That is a great question. I could talk all day about this. I'll try to be brief. So the basic idea is the police cannot contact you without a reason. In legalese, we call it reasonable articulable suspicion that criminal activity is afoot. But basically it's a reason. The police have to have a reason to contact you. When they are out, there are some times when the cops know that you're probably going to be driving drunk. Number one, don't ever drive drunk. We're not telling you to do that. But if you are out there and you're doing something not smart, just know they can set up DUI checkpoints. A lot of the times that's happening at like big event times like St. Patrick's Day and New Year's Eve. But the police are also watching to see how people on the roads are driving. And they're doing that at all times, but especially at night. Usually they start really, really watching for DUIs around 3 o'clock in the afternoon to about 8 or 9 in the morning. So what they're looking for is they're looking for signs that someone is not actually in control of their vehicle, or they're looking for some reason to stop someone because they think there might be something going on. So some of the common things we see, people speeding, that's a surefire way to get pulled over because they don't even have to think you're driving. They're just going to pull you over, and then if they smell alcohol, that's it. Weaving is huge. If you can't stay in the lane of traffic and you're weaving, we see a lot of times, I cannot tell you how many clients of mine, and if you're a drinker, you may understand this. Sometimes you get hungry when you're drinking and you go to Taco Bell.
There we go.
Cops sit outside of Taco Bell on purpose. I'm not kidding. I have a number of friends.
They know that you need some tacos.
So I have a number of friends in law enforcement. They're like, if it's a slow night, I'll sit in front of a Taco Bell.
Don't go to Taco Bell.
Taco Bell's delicious though. But if you get Taco Bell and you're driving home and you're wanting to keep your food warm and you want grab a taco while you're driving and your car weaves, they're gonna get you. So weaving is terrible. They can pull you or whatever. Taco Bell is a sure indicator that you might be drunk or high, especially if it's 2 o'clock in the morning with that late night menu. Other things that they're looking for, the biggest thing that you can prevent is not having your lights on. People, you know, if you're in a new car or a rental car especially, or you just aren't thinking about it, you have to have your lights on because they will pull you over in a heartbeat if your lights aren't on. They'll also pull you over for a broken tail light, if one's busted, if one's out, if your lights are dim. So it's really important to make sure you know what your car looks like at night because the police definitely know what your car looks like and they're looking for it.
Okay. Whether or not you're drinking, they're pulling you over for that stuff at night.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And registration. If your tags are expired, they're going to pull you over. I've done it too.
Yeah, it happens. So yeah, that was most of like the DUI common questions, just kind of information we thought that could be useful to our friends on social media. I don't know if anyone else has any questions or anything like that.
We have a couple friends watching here.
I don't know if anyone, if you have questions, ask them now, or, you know, you can always shoot us a message over social media. Like I said, we're going to do a couple of these, you know, every so often and have a different subject. So like today was DUIs. I think it's super helpful because of how many people we hear from that have them. So it's just a good information in general. Yeah, I don't know what our next subject's going to be, but we'll definitely...
We're going to try to do it on Fridays though, right?
Yeah, Fridays around lunchtime. If you can tune in, that's great. If not, these are still going to be up that you can come back and view, and we'll share them a couple times on our pages as well, just because we don't want the information to go to waste. We'd rather you guys have it.
And if you guys have questions, you can text us. Our phone number to text is 719-822-6227. You can also leave us Facebook messages if you want it to be private, or you can post on our Facebook wall. You can hit us up privately. You can call our firm, anything. If you guys have ideas, even if you're not dealing with a criminal case yourself, but you have questions that your friends have asked or something, shoot us a message and we'll make a video about it. We're really trying to make sure that we're getting the information out there. We, as a law firm, are not one of those firms that's trying to hide the ball. We definitely think you need a criminal defense attorney if you're facing criminal charges, but we want to give as much information as possible to Colorado Springs so that you guys are informed, you know what's happening, and you're a little smarter at the end of Friday.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, definitely. So that's gonna be it for today, guys. Thank you for tuning in. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions or need any help or anything like that. But happy Friday. Yep. Thanks.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye.